Okay, so what's the best way to cut this copper pipe if I'm getting ready to do something with it? Well, that's a great question because you can't just cut this with any old saw or grinder blade. It just won't leave you a clean enough cut. Fortunately, they make a special tool for this called a tubing cutter. They're not crazy expensive. They're actually pretty easy to use. As I mentioned in the other video, a few different varieties of them, but I typically just use this rigid close quarters compact cutter for the few cuts that I have to do here and there. I don't need anything bigger or faster, and the axis of this one is very helpful when I'm working in behind a shower or some old wall or something. I can't fit a bigger tool in there. First, I'm going to take a quick side trip though. We're going to talk briefly about measuring and marking this stuff. So tape measure and Sharpie. You probably can get a line on this stuff with a pencil, but a fine point Sharpie like this is great. And make sure that we take into account the size of the fittings as well. And we'll show you this in more detail once we get into actually installing some stuff, running some piping to shower valves and whatever else. So let's say that I need a pipe that's going 6 inches. Actually, you're going to need more like 6.5, because once let's see if that's coming on camera. So once I take this little elbow fitting here and slide it on, we'll mark that. This is where the Sharpie really comes in handy, and you can tell that's actually a nice snug fit. This is the nice thing about copper. And you see that if we measure that, you're going to find out that you have a 1/2 inch. Right on the money. Similar situation going the other way. Let's say you have a pipe here. Well, you actually don't want to run I hope this is coming in on camera. So I got one pipe going at an angle to the other one. We don't actually want to run this one straight to this one, because once that fitting goes on there, because that would leave you about here. If that fitting goes on, you can see you're actually going to be over about a 1/2 inch. So just make sure we're taking the fittings into account. Hopefully that explanation made sense. If not, you'll get to see this in practice at some point. The focus of this video is actually just on how to cut this stuff. A little bit on measuring, but mostly on cutting the stuff. So I wanted 6 inch. I know I've got a 1/2. We could hold it on that mark, or I can just pull off the end and mark 6.5 to take into account that fitting. Or perhaps you have an elbow on the other side, you already know that's a 1/2, then we go all the way up to 7. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we're factoring in the one elbow. 6 inches plus another 1/2 inch to go inside the fitting, 6.5 inches total. Now we're going to use our handy little tubing cutter, and we're going to kind of tighten it down a little bit. And we're just going to be spinning this little knob on the back. You can see it kind of closes up very gradually. And what we want to do is we've got these two are just the guide wheels to hold it in place and help it spin. This is the wheel that actually cuts it on this side. So we're going to take it and we're going to kind of line up, and you can kind of see the line up here too. You can see the blade up there too, which is helpful. And we're going to hold that so that that cutting wheel is right about on our mark, and our guide wheels is kind of in between the guide wheels there. And we're just going to slowly tighten it until it's just barely snug. Stay on there on its own, that we've barely cranked the wheel down. And then we're just going to spin it around the pipe, and you don't have to worry about really holding it in place or anything at this point. These guide wheels are going to keep it set nice and square on the pipe, and see that very fine little line. This wheel is just scoring a very, very sharp little line as we go around. And then what we're going to do is every time we go around, approximately, we're going to tighten that down a little more, just a 1/4 inch or so. It's pretty easy to overdo it and get it so tight you can't turn it, but you can always back it up a little bit too. If you overdid it, you can turn it counterclockwise and loosen it. And we'll just keep doing that a few times. And tighten it down a 1/4 turn or so, spin it around a rotation or so. And you can see it takes a little bit to do, especially once I'm trying to hold it up on the camera and my hands are all sweaty here outside on this day. I'm having a surprisingly hard time hanging on to this pipe with these sweaty hands. It's humid as all get out here. And you'll feel it kind of, the pipe won't necessarily pop off, but you'll feel it all of a sudden get kind of looser at the very end. And then it'll come off. And you can see that very, very clean, flat face on there. But we do have this little ridge on the inside. So I'm going to show you in the next video when we get ready to prep this stuff and solder it, how we take care of that little ridge there, because you will need to get that out of the way. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, please like and subscribe. I'm David, your home repair coach, and we'll see you back here in just a minute for the video on how to solder this stuff.